You booked it, episode 150. What's going on, everyone? Thank you for joining me today on You Booked It, the #1 podcast where you learn how to create a successful entertainment career. Every episode is a masterclass on how to move your career forward. And if you want even more, head over to youbookeditpodcast.com and join the email community where we dig deep into what you can be doing right now to help book that next gig. And now, let's do this. Alrighty, let's get started. I am excited to introduce my guest today, Paula DeLuise. Are you ready for this, Paula?
I'm so ready. So ready.
Right on. Paula was born and raised on Long Island, New York. As a child, she competed and was a national dance champion many times over, holding regional and national titles. She has danced in many productions, which include Royal Caribbean Cruise Lines, toured with Lisa, Love Inc., and performed with NSYNC. Vegas credits include Show in the Sky at the Rio Hotel and Casino and as dance captain for Jerry Mitchell's Peepshow at Planet Hollywood. You also may have seen her on the last 2 episodes of Season 3's Ice Loves Coco. In addition, Paula was an install director for Celebrity Cruise Lines, as well as a producer and lead vixen of Coco and the Vanity Vixens. In 2010, she started, organized, and produced Broadway Bears Las Vegas, which was an annual event for 5 years to benefit Broadway Cares/Equity Fights AIDS. Currently, Paula is in New York City and has performed on Saturday Night Live with Miley Cyrus and was dance captain, swing, and understudy for the Tony Award-winning director and choreographer Jerry Mitchell and co-choreographer Nick Kankel's new Broadway-bound production of Halftime at the Paper Mill Playhouse. Most recently, Paula danced alongside Rebel Wilson, Liam Hemsworth, Priyanka Chopra, Adam Devine, and Brandon Scott Jones in the final scene of the film Isn't It Romantic? Paula, that is a very condensed overview of who you are and what you've done, but why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself, fill in the gaps, and a little bit more about what you do as a professional in the entertainment industry?
Sure. First of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here with you. Like you
Yeah,
said,
thanks for being here.
oh, no, thank you. Like you said, I was born and raised on Long Island, New York. My parents actually still live in the house I grew up in, which I find is rare these days. I am the oldest of 4 girls, so I have 3 younger sisters, which we all grew up dancing, but I'm the only one who chose it as a career. I started dancing at the age of 3, and I trained in ballet, tap, jazz, and lyrical. The studio that I trained at felt it was very important to instill versatility in us and make sure we were well-rounded dancers, which now I find is such a helpful tool as a professional to be versatile these days. So you're so much more hireable when you're versatile and you can pick up any
Mm.
style that a choreographer throws at you. So yes, I trained in all styles and I started competing when I was 7 years old, and I competed all the way up until I graduated high school. There was a t-shirt that one of my friends had bought me from school that said, "I can't, I have dance," because anytime on the weekends my friends from school were going to the movies or going to a party, I always had to say, "I can't, I have dance." We always had rehearsal on the weekends or dance competitions on the weekends. And right after school, I would go home and do my homework. And then 2 hours later, I was at the dance studio all the way until 11 o'clock at night, and then come home, shower, go to sleep, wake up, and do it all again. So I literally eat, breathe, and sleep dance growing up. And so upon graduating high school, I did attend Adelphi University as a dance major. And after completing my freshman year, I decided I just wanted to get out there and audition. I felt I was young, my body was working, and I wanted to work. So my parents and I came up with an agreement that I would take a year off from school and audition. And if I didn't book anything, I would go back to school for something else. So that May, school ended. The end of May, I went into the city and went to an audition for Royal Caribbean Cruise Line. And I'll never forget that day. And I booked my first audition and I started my
Oh,
career.
cool.
Yeah, I started my career at the age of 19 performing in the production shows on board their cruise ships. I got to travel the world, make friends with people from all over the world, and get to do what I love and got paid to do it. I was living the life at 19 years old. I did that on and off for about 7 years, and I'm still kicking at age 40. So, whether it be in musical theater or in a film or TV, as you stated, or donating my time and talents at Broadway Bears to benefit Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS, I'm still dancing. And I feel that's what keeps me young, right? You're only as old as you feel. I think dancing is what has kept me going and what has kept me young. I am currently living in northern Westchester, so just an hour outside of New York City with my husband and our beautiful 18-month-old daughter. I am a mom now, as in addition to being a dancer. I took about 2 years off. I found out I was pregnant. Actually, funny story, when I was filming Isn't It Romantic, I was 2 weeks pregnant and had no idea. So, yeah, right after filming, I found out I was pregnant and I pretty much slowed down on the dancing. I was still teaching a bit and running auditions, but I wasn't really dancing myself. And being a new mom, I don't really get much time to myself. These last 18 months have been dedicated to being Ava's mommy. And so I felt towards the beginning of this year, my husband and I said, okay, now's a good time to start getting back into auditioning. And my agents were calling me with some auditions. So I started going and I thought, okay, this is great. 2020 is going to be my comeback year. It's going to be fantastic. And I actually booked another movie. And of course, it was supposed to film in March and COVID happened. And so I didn't get to make
Yeah.
my comeback. So I'm really hoping that this is all over, just like everybody else, sooner than later, so that I can have my comeback because I miss dancing. It's tough to be away for that long. You feel out of the loop. And I'm ready to start dancing again. So I've actually used this time to get back into shape and taking virtual dance classes, which have been amazing. So many people have been doing Instagram live classes or Zoom classes just to help one another. And I think just as a creative outlet and just to still be in touch with one another. And it's been helpful for me personally to be able to have these tools so that I can, get back into shape and continue with training so that when things do come back, I'm ready. Yeah, that's kind of my
Yeah.
story right now. Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. It's a great story as well. And you have really done so many different things. Congrats on being a new mom.
Thank you.
That's great. My wife and I have a little girl. She's turning 4 next month.
Oh,
I can't believe it.
man. Yeah, it
Yeah,
goes by
mind
so
blowing.
fast.
It sure does. And it is also a challenge to be a parent and be in the arts for sure. But hey, it's one of those things that it is possible. We work it out and you can have it all. That's what I love about this industry, right? It's just what
Mhm.
you want to make happen for your life. And also love that you won the agreement with your parents. You're like, you know what? Not only am I going to win, I'm going to win on the first one. And off you went. That's so cool.
Yeah, I'm very lucky. I have a very strong support system within my family, and I think that is so important when you're in that entertainment and industry and show business to have a strong support system because of all the rejection we face and the uncertainty in this business. It's just so nice to have supportive family and friends and parents and siblings. I have to say I'm very blessed. And I was fortunate enough to grow up so close to New York City. It's just a train ride away. So I was able to live at home with my parents while going into the city for these auditions. And I always said I admired most of the people that I met auditions, which are now some of my greatest friends. I admire them for picking up and leaving these other cities that they come from to move to New York. And they just leave their families to come and pursue their dream. And it's so hard at the end of the day when you leave an audition and you feel rejected, going home to an apartment that maybe you have a roommate that you don't know that well, or it's just different to go home to your parents or your family when you're feeling that rejection and you're sad and upset. And it's nice to have family as opposed to maybe nobody or just a roommate. And I admire anyone who does that. And I just think that it takes courage to just move to New York City with your suitcase and find an apartment and go to these auditions and try and find your side hustle work, and not have that support right there with you. So I feel very blessed and fortunate that I was able to have that, and still do. At age 40, my parents are still my biggest fans, I felt it was important to say that, because people do, they up and leave wherever their hometown is and they come to New York, and some people make it happen and sometimes it doesn't, but you have to know that you made a bold choice to move to this city, and that in itself is a huge reward. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much for saying that and acknowledging that for all the people that are out there, then also the listeners that are listening to this right now that are in that exact same situation, for sure. And let's move on to our first section here. And look, I am a sucker for a good quote. Paula, what is your favorite quote you'd like to share with everyone?
So, my favorite quote is, "Life isn't about waiting for the storm to pass, a dance in the rain." And I don't just love it because it says dance in it. I just feel it, especially now. It's such a great quote and such wonderful words to live. So it's one of my favorites. I have a few, but that is by far my favorite.
Yeah, that is such a good quote. I haven't heard that quote for a long time. And you're right,
Mhm.
it is so pertinent for this time in history. And really, the word dance in that entire quote is, or it can be very literal, of course, right? But it definitely plays the metaphor, doesn't it? For having fun, letting go, enjoying yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Let's move on to this next section here. And Paula, look, of course, you're an entertainer. I'm an entertainer. And I think that you'd agree that this industry can be one of the most subjective, brutally honest, and personally emotional industries in existence. And you know as well as I that in order to create and have a successful career in this industry like you're having now, takes a lot of dedication and hard work. And while yeah, there's an outrageous amount of fun and excitement being an entertainer, doing what we do, there are also our fair share of obstacles, challenges, and failures we are going to experience and we're going to have to move forward through. So tell us, what is one key challenge, obstacle, or failure you've experienced in your career, and how did you come out the other side better because of it?
So I obviously have faced many challenges. Like you said, this business is full
Mm,
of them. But I felt it's important to talk about this specific one because I wish I would have known this when I was starting out. And I feel like this could
yeah.
help so many others. For the longest time, I was the youngest in the cast that I worked with. So on most of my cruise ship contracts, I was the youngest. And I always was hesitant to go for the dance captain position, which on cruise ships, it's a position that you have to interview for. So they don't choose, they make the choice after the interview, but they give everyone in the cast the opportunity to go and interview for the position. And I was always hesitant because I was the youngest. And I thought, oh, I'm working with people who are older than me or they've done it before. So why would they choose me? I'm younger and I've never done it before. So I never took the opportunity to go for the dance captain position. And I always thought I could do a great job and I would have liked to have been the dance captain, but I always held back. And I always decided, oh, I'm going to just take the wardrobe supervisor position or the wig supervisor position. So I was still in a managerial position. And I still had to create a laundry schedule. I still had to communicate with the home office in Miami. So I was still doing some of the same tasks, but I wasn't the dance captain. And after my time on cruise ships, I decided it was time to put my feet on the ground, if you will, and stay on land for a bit. I thought that I would like to go for a teaching position for Royal Caribbean as a rehearsal director in their studios in North Miami. And when I expressed the interest to the home office, they sent me the application and we set up an interview time. And I had to book a flight from New York to go down to Miami for this interview. And I filled out the application that they requested that I bring with me, along with my headshot and resume. And the woman that I met with was looking over everything. And one of the questions was, have you ever been dance captain for us before? And I answered honestly and said no, because I hadn't. And she looked at me and she said, I just assumed that you had been dance captain for us because you've worked for us for so long. And I said, no, I'd never been dance captain. She said, unfortunately, that's one of our requirements. You have had to have been a dance captain for us, or you held a director position with another company. And I didn't have that experience because I danced for them on their cruise ships performing. And unfortunately, she couldn't hire me for the position. I may have been very qualified for it, but because I wasn't dance captain, I couldn't get the job. And I left in tears. I was so upset because I was upset with myself for never going for the position and allowing myself the opportunity to possibly get it. I talked myself out of it, which then in turn, I wasn't able to get this position that I wanted because I didn't take those opportunities to go for the dance captain position. And I was so upset, and I felt like I wasted my time and my money on the flight. But what I really learned was never to be afraid to take a chance or go for something, because you never know what could come of it. And I took that. And after that, I ended up living in Florida and taught dance at a private school. The kids were able to take dance as an elective. It fulfilled a PE credit. So I taught middle and high schoolers, but I missed performing at that point. And I said, where can I go to do what I love to do, but not New York City? And I thought Vegas. And I always thought I was too short to dance in Vegas because I'm 5'3", and most of the older Las Vegas showgirl shows have taller dancers. And
There's some tall
and
ones.
and I said, you know what? I'm not going to let that hold me back. And I'm going to take a chance. And I subscribed to vegasauditions.com, and I saw that they were auditioning for Show in the Sky. They were turning it over to a new production company, and they were revamping the shows, and they wanted a whole new cast. And I said, I think this is something I should go for. So you had to submit to be invited to the audition. And I submitted, and I found out that I was asked to come to the audition. So I had to book a last minute flight, but I took the chance and I took the flight and I went out there and I ended up booking it. And I was so glad that I didn't talk myself out of it because I thought I was too short, and I just went for it. So moral of the story is, you never know, just go for it. And even if it doesn't work out for you, you'll learn a lesson from it, or you'll get something out of it. You'll make new friends. You'll maybe audition for a producer or director that may keep you in mind for another project. So just always go for it. And in doing a lot of volunteer work for Broadway Cares, Equity Fights, AIDS, Trish works in the office. She runs the strip-a-thon every year that we do for Broadway Bears. And the one thing that she tells us when we were doing our fundraising, she said, if you don't ask, the answer is always no. And I take that with me for everything. I apply it to everything, because what's the worst that's going to happen? Someone's just going to say no. But if you don't ask, you're always going to wonder why, and you're never going to know. So if you don't ask, yes, the answer is always going to be no. But at least if you ask, or you take that chance, you'll know. So that's my advice on that. But that was my one challenge, and my one obstacle was not taking a chance. And in this business, you have to take chances.
Yes, Paula, thank you so much for all of that. That entire section was absolute gold. I am so happy that you said that. And this is why I think this is what it's becoming apparent to me how important this podcast is becoming for our industry and people that are aspiring to create careers in this industry, people that are in this industry looking to navigate it or get more out of it. That advice is insanely good. You're right. You have to go out there and look, this industry is so crazy. There are so many things that are out of our control. We have to really capitalize on the moments that we can control. And
Yes.
you have to say yes to those opportunities. If you want that thing, go get it. See what happens. You have to try because that, in fact, is a very huge thing that you can control. So take hold of it. Don't cut yourself out of the picture prematurely. Go see what can happen. And if it works out, it works out. And if it doesn't, hey, like you said, you still learn something from that. Or I've had other guests on this podcast that have said, I went in for this audition. They said, you know what, that was great. Loved what you did with that song. You are not right for this project, but I'm going to send you in for this one. And that
Yes, that
happens in the
happens
room. And
all the
it's a
time.
real thing.
Yes,
Yeah. So
definitely.
always put yourself out there. Yes. Thank you so much because that is such a valuable section.
Oh, yes, I felt it was so important to share that. And that goes along with my favorite quote is, of course, we're all right now feeling this, that things aren't always going to go according to plan. And instead of sitting around and
Right.
feeling sorry for yourself, we're waiting for things to hopefully get better. Choose to find that little bit of light amongst the darkness, that little glimmer of hope, and see the positive in the situations. And that will help you see you through. Because in this business, like you said, there's so many unknowns, so much uncertainty. We face so much rejection. And if we let all those things consume us and put a negative effect on us, you're going to quit. And you have to go into all these auditions with a positive mindset, taking it as an opportunity for a free class or just an opportunity to dance. And you might, like you said, not be right for that particular show, but you never know sitting behind that table who is working on another project that you might be right for. And it's so easy for us to get discouraged after an audition that we may have been cut from, that you have to think that audition may not have worked out because there is something, another opportunity that is waiting for you that might be better, that you are a
For
better
sure.
fit for. And now more than ever, I'm applying this quote to my daily life. My husband is a head propman for Diana the musical, the Princess Diana musical. And so he's been out of work since March 12th. And the two of us have been home since March 12th. And we're finding that we would have never gotten this time had this not happened. So we're using this time, we're finding the positive, the silver lining, in that we're getting so much family time together. And we bought a house last September and we're getting so many home projects done, things that we would never have had time for. And who knows what the future holds. I wish we had a crystal ball, but we never know if we are ever going to have this time again. So we're trying to turn it into a positive and just enjoy this time together. So, yeah, absolutely. That
Yeah.
quote holds true for everything.
For sure. And it's so good to hear that you are capitalizing on it. In the beginning of this whole COVID craziness, I can imagine you were like most everyone else, that it was super scary, freaking out a bit. But then as you realize, hey, this is kind of what it's going to be for a minute. Let's really try to focus on the positives. Where are the silver linings? Because again, it goes back to what can you control? And if you
Mhm.
if you live in that mindset, you're going to be much better for it and much more successful, not just professionally, but also in your personal well being.
Absolutely.
Great. Let's move on to a time that I like to call your spotlight moment. That one moment in time you realized, yes, I am going to be an entertainer for a living. Or maybe it was, yes, this is what I need to be doing as an entertainer. Tell us about that.
So again, I feel very lucky and blessed because I knew at an early age that I wanted to be a professional dancer. When I was in sixth grade, we had to write down what we wanted to be when we grew up for them to put it in our sixth grade end of year yearbook. And I wrote that I wanted to be a professional dancer. And it's so funny because when I run into people I went to elementary and high school and junior high school with, they all say, I still have my sixth grade yearbook. And I look back and I say, Paula's knew that she wanted to be a professional dancer, and that's exactly what she's doing. And I look back and I laugh. I say, yeah, no, I knew what I wanted to be and I knew what I wanted to do. And I didn't let anything get in my way or stop me from doing exactly what I said I was going to do. And again, growing up on Long Island, we were so close to New York City. My parents always took us into the city to see Broadway shows. And I'll never forget the first show that I saw that I truly remember saying to myself, that's what I want to do. The stage is where I want to be, was Crazy for You. I saw it in 1992 with Karen Ziemba. And that was the moment that I realized I want to be on the stage. And for a while, I toyed with being an architect. I took all architecture courses throughout high school. And I even looked into architecture schools to go for college. And my dad bought me a drafting table and all of my triangles and my T-square and all these pencils. And I went and saw another Broadway show and I said, Dad, I'm so sorry, but I want to be a dancer. And he said, no need to be sorry. But I think like his heart broke a little bit because he was so excited that I wanted to be an architect. But like I said, I have such supportive parents that he was like, okay, we're going to switch gears and let's start looking at schools for dance. And that's how we founded Delphi University. But I knew when I was 12 years old that this is what I was going to do. And I wasn't letting anything get in my way. And the moment that I really realized this is what I need to continue to be doing was after I left Adelphi. There was a little lag time between when I auditioned for Royal Caribbean and when they actually called me to go onto the ship. And so in between in those few months, I did the Women's World Cup opening ceremonies when I danced with NSYNC. And I got to perform in front of 35,000 screaming fans. And
Whoa.
let me tell you, the adrenaline and the feeling was like nothing I've ever experienced before. And at age 19, dancing for that amount of people with NSYNC was just the best feeling. I said, this is what I need to continue. I am on the right path and this is what I need to do. And I just knew it. And that's how it all happened. Yeah, pretty amazing.
Yes, so cool. Yeah, really like that. I forgot to ask you this earlier when you started talking
Mhm,
about your career and working with Royal Caribbean, and you just mentioned it again. And I wanted to just get a little short opinion of
mhm.
your experience on cruise ships and how you feel about cruise ships as a market for entertainers to perform on.
Oh, absolutely. So I did it for 7 years. So if that tells you anything, I had a great experience. It truly depends on the company you work for. I've only worked for Royal Caribbean. I then went on to teach for Celebrity later on a few years ago, but they are sister companies. So in a sense, you are working for Royal Caribbean when you're working for Celebrity and Celebrity when you're
Hmm.
working for Royal Caribbean. But I think it's such a great experience, especially for performers who are just starting out in their career. It is such a great stepping stone to give you that experience of being part of a production if you have never been. It gives you the opportunity to perform different shows. In 1 week, you'll perform 2 to 3 different production shows, which is amazing because you never get sick of doing the same show over and over and over. It keeps you on your toes. I think that's where it really helped me become a swing in several of the shows that I've done. And it takes a certain person to be a swing. And I think cruise ships being able to perform different shows in the same week really helped my mind to be able to switch gears so quickly. But it really gave me all the tools that I needed to start my career and start it successfully. And I personally think that it's now more than ever. If cruise ships come back before Broadway, why wouldn't you go and work on a cruise ship to make money and do what you love?
Truly.
But I truly think for sure Royal Caribbean has state of the art theaters. Their technology on the ships are just as good, if not better, than some of the Broadway theaters. And their production quality is very good. They're difficult shows. They're not easy. You're not doing the Running Man in a G string. You are working your butt off. And I really enjoyed it. And like I said, I have friends all over the world now. It was such a positive experience for me. Of course, like any other job, you have your ups and downs. There are things that may not be so glamorous or exciting about working on a cruise ship, because you do have your ship duties. Not only are you a performer, but safety reasons, you have another position on the ship as a muster station leader. So you're in charge of 150 guests. God forbid an emergency happens. So there are things like that might not feel so glamorous, but that comes along with working on a cruise ship. You're in the middle of the ocean. You want to be able to save your life and others as well. But for the most part, I think it's such a great stepping stone. Or maybe that's all you do in your career. And you know what? That's okay, because you are a working professional. I have to say, there have been times where we've done decreets after the show. So we're standing at the entrance or the exit when guests are leaving the show, and we're just thanking them for coming to the show. And they feel it's a neat experience because they're getting to see the performers up close and personal. And many times they'll come over to you and say, "Oh, that was such a wonderful show. You guys are all so talented. You should really consider doing this professionally." And we're just like, we are. We get paid to do this, and we are professionals. If you get paid to do what you're doing, you are a professional. I think I had a
Yeah.
great experience. It's not for everybody. You are living in close quarters. You live with the people you work with. So if you're the type of person that needs your privacy, it may not be the right fit for you. But overall, I think it's a fantastic job for a performer, especially, like I said, starting out in your career. Or if you're on the road to retirement, and you just want to ship and be able to do your shows, but still travel and save some money, it's a great way to retire too. So I'm all for it.
Yeah.
I think it's great.
Brilliant. Yeah, thanks. Thank you for that little tangent and explaining
Mhm.
that, because even today I feel like a lot of people still give ships a bit of a negative stigma. And I personally
Absolutely.
had a brilliant time
Hmm.
on ships, and for all the same reasons that you think that they're so good, I also agree with that they really are a brilliant place to train. You get more reps on stage, you get to work on different styles, you never get bored, you get to travel, you make money. The checklists keep getting hit, I think, down and down the list as you go. It's really good. Are they for everyone? No, for sure
No.
not, right? But
Mhm.
that's okay. But the other thing is that I like about them, your contracts are usually 7 months, including rehearsals, right?
Right.
So give it a go. What
Yeah.
7 months isn't that long in your life if you realize after 7 months that ships aren't really my thing. Worst
Then
case scenario,
you don't
you
do
saved a
another
bunch
one.
of money and you got to see the world and you made some great friends.
Exactly. I
There you
totally
go.
agree. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's get back on track a little bit and
Sorry.
piggyback on that last question. And let's talk about your number one booked it moment. Walk us through that day, the auditions and callbacks, if they happen to be a part of it. But what was going on in your life? And what about that moment makes it your favorite booked it moment?
I feel like we've been talking about this now for a bit, but it was my Royal Caribbean audition because it was the first one.
Great.
And I was 19, and I hadn't really auditioned for anything before. And I remember taking the train, getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning, I think it was, to do my hair and makeup and make sure I had my bag packed with all my shoes and my headshot and my resume. And I took the train. It's about an hour and 15-minute train ride from where my parents live to Penn Station. And then I remember walking to the studio, and I cannot remember the name of the studio at the time, but I remember walking up and seeing a line of female dancers all the way wrapped around the block. And I was like, oh my
Oh,
goodness, there
whoa.
was at least 200 girls at the audition. And so I just got in line and I stood and I waited. And thankfully, I was within the first group. They brought in 100 girls at a time. And I was in the first group. And I remember they brought us in, and they gave us a studio where we could warm up and get ourselves ready. And then they quickly took us into the studio where the audition was. And I remember being in the warm up room looking at all these super tall, leggy girls, and I was getting so intimidated. I thought that I should probably leave at that point. And I said, nope, you came here, you got up, you got ready, you're going to stay here. You made a deal with your parents. You have to do this, you have to stay. And so I stayed,
Yeah.
and we went into the room, and they had us just go across the floor just so they can weed out to make sure you had technique. And we literally just did step, batma, all the way across the floor. And of course, again, in my head, I'm thinking there's all these long leggy girls kicking their faces. And here I am at a time. And of course, they pair me with one of the tallest girls. And I'm thinking in my head, oh my gosh, I'm so not getting this. So they had us first 100 go. We went across the floor, and they called out numbers, and my number was called. And I was like, there's no way. They must have made a mistake. And so I said, they called my number. I'm going to stay. So they told us to come back in 2 hours. So I said, okay, I got to go find something to do for 2 hours. So I stay in the studio, and I wanted to stay warm and make sure I didn't miss anything. If they made an announcement, I wanted to be in the studio still. So I stayed, and they brought in the next 100 girls, and then they saw all the guys. And so it was a good long 2 hours. And then they brought us back into the room. So from 200 girls, they narrowed it down to about 50. So they brought all 50 of us in, and we learned a combination. And it was a fun, like, jazzy combination, again, just to see style and technique and to see how you perform. So we did the combination, we did it 3 at a time. And at that point, I was feeling more confident because I said, okay, I made it past. It has nothing to do with my height, clearly. So I'm just going to be more confident, and I'm going to stay positive, and I can do this. And so we did the first combination, another cut, and they kept 25 of us. And then they said, okay, go outside and wait. We're going to bring the guys in. So then they brought the guys in. The guys learned a combination. They made a cut. Then they brought all the girls and guys in, and we learned another combination. And so now they started the audition at 10 a.m. And then here it is about, I think it was like 4 p.m. by the time we came in to learn that second combination with the guys. So then we learned another fun combination, lots of jumps, turns, kicks, and they decided to make another cut. And so from 25 girls, they narrowed it down to 15 of us, and the same thing with the guys. And then they had us, I think we learned like 3 more combinations. By the end of it, it was 6:00 p.m. I was exhausted, so
Whoa.
sweaty. It was a very long day, but because their shows are so diverse, and some of them, they are now doing musicals, but most of their shows are review shows. So you have to be able to do all different styles, which is why I felt so
Right.
important at the beginning of our interview to say versatility is so important, and making sure that you're not a one-trick pony, that you are so much more hireable if you are able to adapt to any style that is thrown at you. And I was so thankful that day that I had all the training that I did, because otherwise I probably would have never have gotten that far in the audition. Again, here it is 6:00. They finally said, okay, we're not going to teach you anymore. They sat us down. They gave us some paperwork to look over. They showed us a brief video of what ship life is like. That's a little tongue twister. And just a brief bit about the company. And I'll never forget Mark Dow and Sherry Zunker. They're from Chicago. Sherry Zunker was a Fosse dancer, and she was they were both part of River North company in Chicago. He came over to me and he said, so how old are you? And I thought, oh no, if I say the wrong answer, am I not going to get the job? And I said, 19,
Right.
because you had to have been 18 to work on a ship. So I said 19. And he said, wow, he said, you're that good when you're 19. He said, I cannot wait to see you when you get older. And I was just like, oh my gosh, even if they don't call me ever,
Cool.
those words alone, I said, I made it. I did it. And so that audition, like I said, it was a long, exhausting day, but it definitely was the day that I felt was my booked it moment. And obviously moving on, Peepshow, and being able to work with Jerry Mitchell and Nick Hinkle, and then again with the 2 of them for halftime. Those are 2 incredible booked it moments. From when I was 19 years old, I wanted my equity card. I wanted to be equity so bad because, like I said, in between auditioning for Royal Caribbean and actually getting the phone call with the contract and what ship they wanted me to go work on, I had continued auditioning. And I auditioned for Saturday Night Fever because that was on Broadway at the time. I had gotten called back for that show. And finally, it was down to me and another girl for a replacement. And they had called me in for the final round. And they said to me at the end of my audition, they said, "You're amazing and you're really great, but you're too short." And I just wanted to cry because I said, "You had me go through all of this just to tell me I was too short. Like, didn't you know from the minute you saw me that I was too short?"
Right?
But I was so grateful for the opportunity to be able to audition and get that experience and sing. And let me tell you, singing is not my favorite. I definitely prefer dancing, but I have trained in singing, probably not as much as I would have liked to have, and I should have. But to be able to get through the singing portion of audition and to get called back was a huge deal for me. So that in itself was rewarding, even though I didn't book it. And I remember being on the train on my way home that day, and I was hysterically crying, talking to my mom. And she said, "Actually, Christy from Royal Caribbean called." And she left a brief message saying that they would like for you to leave to go in 10 days. And I said, "Whoa, what?" And so, like I
Whoa.
said, that's why you may, something may not work out for you, and it's for a reason. And I did not meant to go work on cruise ship and start my career that way. And so that's another reason why I'll never forget that day, was because Royal Caribbean really pulled through for me. And that's why I think it's such a great opportunity, because it was for me. So that was my booked it moment. But I did want my equity card so bad because I was going to these Broadway auditions. And as I'm sure, you have to be union to go to these auditions. And you can go to the audition, but you'll sit around and wait to see if they're going to see non-union. And I would sit around and we called it crashing the equity audition, because we would go, we would put our name on the list, and then we would sit around and wait to see if they would possibly see non-union. And that's how I've made so many of my friends. We would all go to these auditions together and sit and wait together. And that in itself was an amazing experience, just creating friendships with other dancers that were crashing equity auditions. But I wanted my
Yeah.
equity card so bad so that I could go to these auditions without crashing them. And most of them we would get seen, or they would at least take a headshot to do some typecasting. But I so wanted it so badly. And then it wasn't until after moving to Vegas and getting into Show in the Sky, and then Peepshow was in Vegas, and I auditioned for Peepshow, and getting into Peepshow, I finally at age 30 got my equity card. And it's been now so helpful being back in New York, being an equity member, and being able to go to these auditions and not worrying about crashing the audition and waiting around all day. And I feel for the dancers that do now, especially when I walk into those audition rooms and I see them all sitting there. And some people may say, "What are they doing in here? They're taking up our space for warming up." And I get that part of it. But then I also feel for them, because I was one of them. We were all them at one point. Getting Peepshow was another huge booked it moment, to be able to work with Jerry Mitchell and Nick Hinkle, and to get my equity card for sure. But yeah, those were my booked it moments, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah, love it. And let's take a moment to talk about the present. What projects are you working on now? What are you looking forward to? And it's a crazy time, right? We're amidst this global pandemic. How do you see the entertainment industry moving forward in the next couple of years?
So I'm going to be selfish in saying right now I'm working on myself, because all we
Yeah.
do have right now is time. So I have that time to be able to work on myself, getting back into shape, taking the Instagram live dance classes and Zoom dance classes, and just getting back to myself and being ready for those auditions for when things do start up again. And I'm looking forward to things starting up again so I can have my comeback moment. But yeah, that's pretty much what I'm working on now. I also started 2.5 years ago. I started my own wedding day May. So that's been keeping me very busy as well, because that's another industry that got hit very hard during all of this. And most of my couples, as well as other couples, have had to postpone their weddings for this year, for next year, or even the year after. So I'm getting a lot of bookings for next year. So that's been keeping me very busy as well. And my daughter Ava has been keeping me very busy. So I'm working on being the best mommy I can be for my daughter. But It's hard to say how I see the entertainment industry moving forward. Like I said, I wish we had a crystal ball, but all I can say is that for sure, New York City, but performers all over the world are some of the most resilient people. And there's such a strong sense of community and camaraderie, especially in New York City, that when Broadway and when things do come back, it's going to be better than ever. And I cannot wait because everyone has all this creativity, this time to get more creative, and all this energy that when it does come back, it's just going to be like fireworks, like an explosion, and it's going to be amazing. And people need it to come back, and we need this to come back because it's culture, it's an outlet for people, and people need to be entertained. And yes, we have the TV and movies and Netflix and Hulu and all those wonderful outlets at home, but there's nothing like live entertainment. And so I wish I could say, oh, it's going to come back in May, but we don't know. And I just know that when it does happen, it's going to be amazing. And watch out, everyone, and get your tickets now because it's just going to be something special.
I really like your insight, and I think it's so good that you're taking your time for yourself because that's, again, what we can control in this moment, hey?
Mm-hmm.
And it is time to move on to one of my favorite sections in the interview. I call it the Grease Lightning Round. I am going to ask you a handful of questions. I want you to answer them as quickly and concisely as possible, one after another. Are you ready?
I am ready. Let's go.
All right, first question. What was the one thing holding you back from committing to a career as an entertainer?
My height.
The second question. What is the best piece of advice you have ever received?
Okay, this is going to probably sound cliche and silly, but my parents told me this and instilled this in me and my sisters. Give up and always follow your dreams. Like I said, they've been my biggest cheerleaders and fans my whole life. They have been my biggest support system, which, like I said, is so important in this business. And it just sticks with me even now at age 40, like I said. But another very important piece of advice is that you never know who is watching, and you never know who's who and who talks to who. In this business, it's so important to be pleasant to work with, to have a good reputation, because reputation is everything in this business. You can have all the talent in the world, but if you are not pleasant to work with, you will not work. People do talk, and like I said, you never know who's watching, who's in a room watching you take class, or who came to a performance that you don't know about. And they may be looking for somebody to cast in that show that they came to see working on another project. And if you're up there marking the show, then they're definitely not going to hire you. Being pleasant to work with and having a good reputation is definitely another great piece of advice that I received.
Yes, so good. And the third question, what is something that is working for you right now? Or if you'd like to go pre-COVID, what was working for you before our industry went on pause?
I'll have to talk pre-COVID as well as pre-baby, but I also do apply this in my everyday life as well, and with my wedding coordinating business. Attention to detail and being reliable is what has really been working for me. Trying to anticipate what it is a choreographer or a director is going to ask or need before they even say it or even think that they need it. That's one of the reasons why I feel the dance captain role has been something that I have taken on for the last few shows that I have worked on, is because of my attention to detail and because I am reliable, or so I've been told. I also treat everyone with respect and try to create a fun and positive environment. I try to organize other activities outside of the show, whether it's a food or toy drive or the birthday cake club. At Peepshow, funny story, I know we're trying to keep this grease lightning fast, but this is funny. So at Peepshow, I would keep a little plastic drawer set at my dressing station with some snacks because I would be there for rehearsals all day. And so on a break, I would quickly run and get a protein bar or a little bag of pretzels or something. And so I always kept them in my drawer. And some people found out I had this little drawer and they would come in and ask, can I have a snack? And of course I'm going to say yes. Then I would go open my drawer the next time and there would be no snacks. So I started giving extra stock to my little snack drawer. And then I would find there was no snacks the next time I would go in. And so I brought in another bigger set of plastic drawers and I stocked it. I went to Sam's Club and I bought the biggest box of small bags of pretzels I could find and granola bars and protein bars. And I stacked it up and everyone said, you know what, we should call this Paul Green instead of Walgreens. And I kept emergency stuff in there and Band-Aids and tissues and everything. And so after a year of having Paul Green stocked, the cast decided they would monthly take up a collection and they would all help contribute to Paul Green's. So I believe in having a positive and creating a positive environment and a fun working environment. And I think that's one thing that works for me is I truly, genuinely care about others and want them to always have a positive experience, even if it's at my own expense. So that's one thing I think has worked for me, and I think will continue hopefully to work for me.
For sure. And the fourth question, what is your best resource? Whether that is a book, a movie, a YouTube video, maybe a podcast or piece of technology that you found is helping your career right now.
In all honesty, something that has helped me right now, but also in the past, is the Actors Fund. I don't know if you're familiar with the Actors Fund, but they have been such a helpful resource for myself, and I know so many others, especially during this crazy time. The Actors Fund fosters stability and resiliency and provides a safety net for performing arts and entertainment professionals over their lifespan. So if you're ever in need of any help, whether it be for health insurance or housing or even a career transition or just anything, they offer such great counseling. Just go to the actorsfund.org and you'll find so many different resources for anything that you might need. I use them for career transitions for dancers, which was a grant that I received to be able to take my online course to get certified for wedding and event planning. So they will help you think about that transition, because at some point we're all going to have to make that transition. And it's so nice to have a resource of professional performers that can help you make that transition a little bit easier and have that support system to help you make the right decision. They give you some career counseling in making the right decision of what might be the best path for you when you're making that transition. The Actors Fund has truly been a helpful resource for me. And I'm going to say the You Booked It podcast has definitely been helpful. It's something that I've been listening to for the last few months now. And I have to say thank you for starting this, because it truly is so helpful, especially now more than ever. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. That means a lot. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And let's get into the fifth question. If you had to start your career from scratch, but you still had all the knowledge and experience you've collected from your career in this industry, what would you do or not do? Would you do anything differently, or would you keep it the same?
So I would have to say I would keep everything the same. I have no regrets on any of the decisions I've made or the choices or the opportunities that I have been presented with. The one thing that I would do differently is I would take more vocal lessons and start them a lot sooner than I did, because I would love to be more confident in my singing. And I think that I could work even more if I was more confident with my singing. So that would be the one thing for sure.
Great. And the last question, what is the golden nugget knowledge drop you've learned from your successful career in this industry you'd like to leave with our listeners?
I have said it before, but I'm going to reiterate it because it is so important. Being versatile, being adaptable, being prepared, and being patient are so important in this industry. Like I said, being versatile so that you can be more hireable, so that you can work so much more if you're a well-rounded performer. And like I said, not a one-trick pony. Being able to pick up and adapt to any style a choreographer throws at you is so valuable, especially if you're part of a workshop or a new original production where things are constantly changing from one day to the next. Being adaptable is so important. And being prepared is crucial. Not only prepared with the right shoes or attire or your headshot and resume, but do your research. Know who you are auditioning for and what you are auditioning for. With the internet and the knowledge literally at your fingertips, there is no excuse to not do your research. Also know that your body language and how you present yourself at auditions is very important. They know the minute you walk into a room what kind of performer and person you are. They watch how you pick up choreography, really focus on how you present yourself as a performer. And one last little thing I want to say, I had mentioned her before, Sherry Zunker. I had worked with Royal Caribbean. She's amazing. She said something to us when we were working with her that I will take with me, and I say it to anybody that I work with. She told us to color within the lines. And I had to sit there and think for a second. And what she means is a choreographer is going to give you the choreography, and those are the lines. I don't know if you remember, or like a coloring book, right? You get the outline and then you take your crayons and you color in. Well, the choreography is the outline, but your personality is the color that you choose. You get to add your personality, but you don't get to change the choreography. So that is so important when you're working with choreographers, is you don't have the right to change their choreography, but you do get to add your personality to it. So always color within the lines. And finally, being patient is just know that nothing happens overnight. You have to put in the time, the dedication, and the hard work. Don't get discouraged and give up after the first no, because you're going to get 10 no's for every one yes you get. So be patient with yourself. Allow yourself those rejections, because it's going to build you up and give you that tough, thick skin that you need to really survive and thrive in the industry. And I will leave you with those words.
Oh, so good. And all of that was gold, by the way. For everyone, please rewind that. But I really like the imagery of coloring within the lines. Really great.
Yeah.
And to wrap up this interview, Paula, it is time to give yourself a plug. Where can we find you? How do our listeners connect with you? Is there anything you want to promote?
Yes, on social media, you can find me on Facebook. I'm Paula DeLuise. On Instagram, I am at Princess Paula, or my website is pauladeluise.com. If you are getting married or interested in management business, you can find me on Facebook, The Best Day Ever Events, and on Instagram at The Best Day Ever Events by Paula. And the website is thebestdayeverevents.com. And my husband and I, through this, have started a little side thing, the balloon business. We make balloon arrangements for people. We wanted to bring some joy to everyone in our town. And we do travel a little bit to deliver, but we wanted to just spread some joy during this crazy time and bring some people some smiles. So we make balloon arrangements, whether it be for a birthday or any occasion. And so that's called Let's Flamingo Balloons. And we are on Instagram at Let's Flamingo Balloons.
Brilliant. And for everyone listening out there, I have put the links to everything Paula just said into the description of this episode so you can easily connect with her. And be sure to share this podcast with your fellow entertainers, coaches, art and entertainment educators, and anyone, really anyone you know aspiring to create a career in this industry. You Booked It is the #1 resource of expertise on how to actually create a successful career in this industry. Case in point, look at everything that just got said in this episode with Paula, everything she gave you. And as of today, there are now 150 other episodes of other fantastic guests that have their own unique insights and really those core fundamentals of what creates a successful career in this industry. So please, if you enjoyed this episode, subscribe, share it so you don't miss tomorrow's. Paula, thank you so much for being here. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on.
Thank you for having me, and it was an absolute pleasure speaking with you. And I wish everyone out there the best of luck and stay safe and healthy. Please wear your masks.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Don't miss an episode. I have a new guest 7 days a week. Every guest drops more value and insight than any other resource out there, so make sure you hit that subscribe button. If you enjoyed this episode, we'd love to hear from you. Leave us a rating and review. Also, be sure to head over to youbookeditpodcast.com and join our free email community where we dig deep into a continually growing resource of truly actionable things you can be doing right now to help you advance your entertainment career. All the best to you. We'll see you tomorrow.